Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the St Michael's Grammar School Open Morning this morning. My name is Ben Jaycock, and I'll be facilitating our 7 to 12 Q&A session this morning. Before we start with the official Q&A aspect of the morning, I'll cover off on a few housekeeping notes to help you through the next 45 minutes or so as we join together. Please type your questions into the Q&A feature as part of this broadcast at any time. If your question is not addressed in the session today, as long as it's not entered as anonymous and you leave an email address, then we'll get back to you about that. The session is being recorded, and the link to the recording will be emailed to all registrants in the coming days. If you have any technical issues, please outline the issue in the Q&A feature, and we will certainly aim to assist you as quickly as we can to get you back on track. We also encourage you to download information on transport, fees and policies, as well as the curriculum handbooks from our website at stmichaels.vic.edu.au. Whilst this open morning is an online format, we have commenced small group tours once community restrictions allow us. These must be booked via our website, and we also encourage you to view the guided virtual tour of the campus, including a range of spaces across the school, which is available on our website as well. Wherever you're watching and joining us this morning, we hope you're keeping safe and well. We are sorry not to be able to join you on campus and give you a look around the school site and be able to speak with you face to face. But we're also very grateful that technology does allow us to connect with you. And we hope that the next little while provides you with the opportunity, as I said, to ask some questions and also to be able to get a flavour of St Michael's. And we appreciate your interest in the school. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Ben Jaycock, and I'm the Director of Years 10 to 12. What I'll do now is pass over to our other panellists to introduce themselves and give you a brief outline of their roles. Gerard Houlihan, are you there to introduce yourself, please?
Thanks, Ben. Is the camera on? My name is Gerard Houlihan, obviously. I'm Deputy Head of the school, and I'm proud to have been a member of the St Michael's community for now going on 20 years. It's a wonderful, authentic community, and my role in it is to oversee the wellbeing and pastoral care frameworks across K to 12. My own background as an educator is in the area of science and art, and I've got a great interest in emerging technologies and how they can support wellbeing and issues such as school refusal. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Gerard. Kate Kelly.
Hi, yep, thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Kelly. I am the Director of Year 7 to 9 quadrant, which essentially means I work closely with Gerard and with Ben and oversee the wellbeing and the pastoral care and academic engagement of around 450 Year 7s, 8s and 9s. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Kate. Emma McDonald. No, Emma's not there for a moment. I think she just dropped out there for a second. That's okay. Ben Moody, I might throw to you if you could just introduce yourself and perhaps give a bit of an outline of your area, please.
Yes, thanks, Ben, and good morning, everyone. My name's Ben Moody. I'm the Director of Performing Arts here at St Michael's, and have the great privilege of overseeing all of our programs, our many varied programs in music, dance and drama, both within the curriculum, but also our extensive co-curricular program. A couple of highlights that we're really looking forward to at the moment, which are front of mind, is opening our season of Shrek, which is our major musical for the year at the National Theatre. It's been pushed back just by a week, but we're hoping to get into the theatre next week when all of this current business is over. But we've also just come out of a fantastic senior concert at Deakin Edge as well. So we have opportunities for all students to become involved from Year 7 right through to Year 12, with a focus on, in the first instance, just participating and getting involved, finding their particular niche, and ultimately, for many of our students, becoming quite elite in their field. So I'll be very happy to answer any of your questions this morning as they arise around any of our programs. But for now, I might just throw back to you, Ben, and look forward to what comes forward in the discussion.
Thanks, Ben. Much appreciated. And I'm sure we'll be coming back with a few of those questions shortly. Tyren Montebruno, same for you, if you wouldn't mind, please. Just introducing yourself and a little bit of an outline of your area, please.
Thanks, Ben. My name is Tyren Montebruno. I'm the Director of Sport, and I oversee the sport program from Year 7 to 12. So Ben, what I might do is give a quick little overview, and then if you've got any questions, please add them to the Q&A. St Michael's is a key member of the ACS, which is the Association of Co-Educational Schools, and we've got 5 other member schools, which is St Leonard's College, Westbourne Grammar School, Over Newton Anglican College, Leola College, and also our affiliate school, Beacon Hills Parade. Now, by that I mean they only compete in our swimming, athletics and cross-country carnival. Sport is compulsory for our students from year 7 through to year 12, with our year 12 students having the option to play in the summer season or winter, or in most cases they play both. Our summer season runs in terms 1 and 4, and our winter being terms 2 and 3. Students will play in 10 rounds throughout that season, and then the top 2 will play off in a grand final. We are a midweek competition school, so no Saturday commitments at all, with our year 7 and 8s playing sport on a Tuesday, our seniors playing on a Wednesday, which is our year 10, 11 and 12 students, and then on a Thursday is our year 9s. So throughout the term, they might have 4 or 5 matches and 4 or 5 trainings. Additionally to that, we do have early morning training sessions, so the students can opt into our academies, our sport academies, or we have our senior first team training, and they come across all mornings of the week. And finally, we have 4 major carnivals throughout the year, which is swimming, athletics, cross country, and one that's upcoming is our house aerobics, sort of a cheerleading event. With the first 3, our students do have the opportunity to go on to that ACS level and represent the school, so swimming, athletics and cross country, and then onto that state level as well. Hopefully I've covered a lot now, but if you've got any further questions, please put them in the Q&A. Thanks, Ben.
Great, Tyren, thank you so much. That's a really terrific overview of our general sport program, and as Tyren mentioned, we'll certainly come to a range of questions as they come through. Again, please post your questions if you have them as you're joining us this morning in the Q&A function, and we also have a number that have been pre-submitted, so we'll work through a number of those, and hopefully some of the ones we have and address initially might also cover off on some of the things that you might be wondering about this morning. Gerard, I might come to you to start with, as someone who's been at the school for, as you mentioned, quite some period of time. Perhaps you could give a little bit of a flavour of, I guess, the culture at St Michael's, if you could, please.
Thanks, Ben. Well, I suppose I've invested in this community for so many years because it's an authentic community. And by that, I mean the values are lived. What are the values? Dignity, respect, care and compassion. These are the founding values of our school and have been, I suppose, perpetuated through the generations of students and staff and families that have belonged to this community. One of the elements that structures the values now is the frameworks we have in place, respectful relationships frameworks, the triage frameworks, and other supportive frameworks that in one sense provide a clarity for the entire community about what it is we espouse, and also support for how we all live that. The school is a very inclusive school, very diverse. As a co-educational school, K-12 on a single campus, we have the wonderful opportunity for the serendipitous encounters between the older students and the younger students having a line of sight as to where they will be heading, the older students being able to complete that virtuous circle of looking after the younger students who they care for and show the ropes in the various clubs and leadership roles in the same way that they were nurtured. In that regard, we have a very strong student representative council made up of student leaders from years 5 through to year 12, and they inform decisions that develop the future fabric of the school, everything from our teaching, learning and caring frameworks through to the way we negotiate contracts in a sustainable way with external providers. One of the core elements that's really important about the school is that we have a strengths framework that encourages students to develop insight into their own strengths and passions, and in context of developing a sense of purpose in life, ultimately graduate as contributing citizens. And I think that's a really important aspect of the community mindedness of St. Michael's. It's a very holistic approach to education. As I mentioned, in the junior years, a big focus on strengths and identifying what they are, and working with Stanford University's Project Wayfinder, big focus in years 7 to 9 on developing a sense of community and belonging, and then in years 10 to 12, developing a sense of purpose. I think it ultimately boils down to St. Michael's being a school that's big enough to offer a plethora of activities and opportunities, and yet small enough as a community to make sure that every child, staff member and family is known and seen. I think that's the important part. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Gerard. That's really comprehensive. Thank you so much. As we move through some things, as I said, you'll get an idea of a flavour of the school across a range of things. And one of the questions that we have, one of the key aspects of our program on a day-to-day basis is our house program and our house period. Kate, if we could come to you, the role of house period, at which the students have 4 days a week, and the pastoral program, could you give us a bit of an overview of, I guess, the purpose of that house period time that the students connect with?
Sure. Thanks, Ben. The house period, as the name suggests, is conducted in houses, and there's 5 houses across years 7 to 12 that the students are placed into, kind of like a Harry Potter sorting hat when they first come to St. Michael's. The house period itself we're really proud of, and it really is a staple of the timetable. So it does allow 45 minutes, as Ben said, 4 times a week for the students to come together in their year level within their house. And when you think about what that time is used for, it's probably 4 key things. So it's used for connection, and that can just be, the students sitting down with each other, talking about some experiences across the week, having time to talk to their 2 tutors. Extension is another frame within the house period as well. So sometimes there's guest speakers or workshops that we use that period for, to not interrupt other subjects or classes. Reflection as well, I think we use it as, I guess, a time for when we find a need to tailor a program for that. For example, the year 7s, hopefully when we're back on site next week, we're running a bit of a social media session with all 5 groups, looking at their responsibilities to themselves, but also to others when they're on social media platforms. And then I think academic support is the other area that we use the house period for. So once a week, we've rolled out this year that across year 7 to 11, they'll each have a study period. We can use that to learn, I guess, study skills, but also to help the students with their time management in terms of working through out of class work that does seem to be a bit of a pressure point when they're first coming into high school. Thanks, Ben.
Kate, thanks so much. A couple of other questions as we work through. There's a question there in the Q&A about where do students at St. Michael's come from geographically. And I know in Gerard's piece a moment ago, he talked about the diversity of the school, and I think that's really represented in the geographic location where our students come from. Students at St. Michael's do come from quite a wide area. We have a lot of students that come from, I guess, more local suburbs, Brighton, Caulfield, Sandringham, St Kilda, Elsternwick, and those sort of suburbs that are a little bit more close geographically to the school. But they're also much more widespread. We have a large contingent of students that come in from Williamstown every day, Yarraville, Flemington, Kensington, even across as far as Moonee Ponds, Essendon, Brunswick to the north. And then students that come from a little bit further out as well, down in the southeastern suburbs. So the students do come from a variety of areas, and I think that's one of the things that really adds to the mix of St. Michael's. Is it is a really diverse community with families of many different backgrounds, and that adds to I guess the breadth and the culture within the school, which really provides a great aspect of the school on a day-to-day basis. And students certainly develop friendships that are, I guess, far and wide, which I'm sure is a challenge sometimes for parents getting across to parties and gatherings and those sorts of things as they're spread across the city. But we really feel it really adds to the richness of our community. A couple of other questions there. Tyren, I might come to you. There's a question there about basketball and rugby. Would you be able to cover off on those 2 sports? I think you mentioned it earlier, but also what competition the school plays in for their sport.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, so just confirming we are in the ACS, which is the Association of Co-Educational Schools. We do have basketball for both boys and girls, with our summer season being our boys basketball season and our winter being the girls season. So, and then you've asked a question about rugby. While we don't have rugby, we do have touch rugby, and that is also a mixed option for our students. So our boys and girls play together in our summer season. Thanks, Ben.
Very Tyren, thank you. Ben Moody, private music tutors. So it's I was going to say double-barrel question, but it's a multi-barrel question, this one. So could you just talk a little bit about music tutors, if you could, please? So I guess the range of instruments, the fact that it's an option, how often per week, and how does that impact on a student's classes if they're attending private music tutor lessons through the course of a week?
Yeah, terrific. Thanks, Ben. Yeah, very happy to answer that question. We do have a very significant private music program, and we offer tuition in most of the orchestral instruments, woodwind, brass, percussion, stringed instruments, as well as contemporary instruments such as bass guitar, electric guitar, drum kit, very popular as well. So students many of our students actually begin their musical journey in the junior school, but we do have a huge uptake from students entering in year 7 as well. Typically a lesson for beginners would last for about 30 minutes. And then as they move through the year levels, as they become more proficient, they might extend that to 45 minutes or an hour lesson. Senior students, we prioritise for non-class times. So all year 11 and 12 students will have a lesson that will be either before school, at lunchtime, in a study period, or after school. In the younger year levels, 7, 8, 9, it would be expected that they would come out of a class once per week for their lesson. And we have a number of processes to make that really straightforward and easy for them to catch up. I think attached to that as well is that the opportunities that come for those students to then play in one of our ensembles, be it one of our concert bands, jazz bands, our orchestra or our string orchestra, or our contemporary School of Rock program, is also a really significant byproduct of that. And that's why we have such a thriving co-curricular program as well. But essentially, if students want to learn that particular instrument, we have the tutor here for them. And also we'll just add that we do have a thriving voice program as well. So lots of students who are really interested in learning both classical and contemporary voice. So you want it, we can find the right tutor for you here at St Michael's. Thanks, Ben.
Ben, thank you so much. Look, while I've got you there, I might just take one of the questions that we've had through as well. Do music students play instruments for the school musical? So how have you got things arranged, for example, for Shrek?
Yeah, it's a great question, because typically when we put these musicals on, the standard that's required of the players is quite high. So it tends to be that students will audition to be part of that orchestra if that's their choice. If they don't want to be in the cast, they can certainly choose to be in the orchestra. And it's a great opportunity for them. We have about half of the orchestra will be made up of students. The other half will be potentially some staff, some old Michaelians who come back to support. And it's a really great learning environment for those students who get involved. So absolutely. Also, when we have our year 7 to 9 musical, which we'll be putting on later this year, another great opportunity for more proficient music students to join the orchestra. Just while we're on that with the productions, there's also a great opportunity for students who don't want to be on stage or in the pit to help backstage. And we have a really great team of tech crew and stage crew students, and they're led by their own student leaders. And in fact, all of our musicals here are stage managed by a student, which we think is an equally valuable part of the theatre productions learning process. Thanks for that, Ben.
Ben, thank you. That's terrific. That's certainly, yeah, there's an abundance of opportunities for students to be involved, as Ben mentioned, whether it's on the stage or in the orchestra pit or even backstage. It's a wonderful aspect of the performing arts that students with an interest can certainly contribute in lots of different ways, and they certainly do on a year-to-year basis, which is super. Kate, I might just come back to you for a moment. There was a question there about the school supporting the wellbeing needs of students. And ensuring that students don't, I guess, slip through the cracks. You mentioned the house program earlier. Could you talk a little bit perhaps just to how, I guess, that monitoring of students from a wellbeing perspective and the roles of house tutors and heads of house and then our school psychologist support service?
Yeah, sure, that's fine. I think, look, fundamentally, when you're a school, that we would say we hang our hat on our wellbeing, that we are best practice in that area, and best practice means that every employee at the school is responsible for the wellbeing of our students. That's whether you're in maintenance or teaching maths or a tutor. Having said that, though, we do have a really positive system put in place to ensure that students feel a really strong sense of belonging and don't feel at any time that they're not known or that they are slipping through the cracks. So each student has 2 tutors within that house group that we were referring to before, who's always the first port of call. And again, they get to know the students really well because of that really strong connection across the house period 4 times a week. Above that is a head of house who not only spends time weekly with the tutors being briefed on the students, also spends time going between each house period and getting to know the students on a deeper level as well. And then above the head of house is me. So we have this really clear triage system that ensures, one, that there's a good entry level point for what we might call, small wellbeing issues or minor concerns, but then also really strong mechanisms put in place for students who might find themselves in a bit more of a stressful situation later on. Thanks, Ben.
Okay, thanks so much. Emma McDonald, I know that you've had another commitment this morning, so fantastic that you could join us. So I might throw to you just to introduce yourself and briefly update on your role, please.
Thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. My name's Emma McDonald and I'm the Director of Curriculum. I'm also an English and Drama teacher, and I've just been teaching my Year 11 English class this morning, dystopian fiction, which is a little bit eerie at the moment, given our deserted streets. My role is to work with the students, the heads of house, the heads of faculty, to make sure that really our learning programs are what our students need and what they want them to be. So we look at all of the nuts and bolts of learning, so making sure that we are covering obviously things like literacy and numeracy, but we also look at the range of subjects that we have on offer and just making sure that they are still relevant to our students. Thanks, Ben. I think that's, I could go on, but that's probably what's relevant at the moment.
Terrific, thanks, Emma. That's terrific. I'm sure we'll come back to you shortly with some of these questions. Gerard, I might come back to you if that's okay. And there's a question regarding opportunities for students to engage in volunteering and community action. Would you be happy to talk about some of the opportunities that we offer students to, I guess, make a contribution to the broader community in that volunteering and community service area?
Sure, thanks, Ben. Well, I think it goes to the heart of our well-being, actually. The notion of PERMA, that's Martin Seligman's framework for well-being, and that is positive emotions, engagement, developing relationships, having a sense of meaning and accomplishment. And most of that can be realized through the art of contributing to others to make for a better world. With that being said, we have a broad range of clubs and activities that operate independent of the houses that Kate described, as well as separate student-led portfolios in regards to contributing to the broader community with social service, so to speak. I think in one sense, it's the houses that drive the community action days that we have throughout the year that raise not just funds, but awareness around particular issues. And also the notion, as I touched on before, that St. Michael's being a long-standing member of this community is one that can proudly put its hand up and say that we belong and we indeed contribute. So, for example, this morning I met with the student leaders and we're talking about, in a couple of weeks' time, facilitating our week to support the homeless. And that's done in conjunction with Sacred Heart community. And at the end of that week, there'll be a community action day. This will be led by a house and supported by students across the school in years prep through to year 12. The students will do, I think, very thoughtful and sensitive activities that engage the students in the issues, raise awareness across the staff, the students and the families, but also give something quite practical in support of the community thereafter. I think that the school has a long reputation, long established reputation, as I mentioned earlier, for being progressive and community minded. And a lot of our students who have gone on to find their place in the world have done so in areas that could be described as philanthropic. And those students in turn come back and present to our students at St. Michael's, and as I talked about that virtuous circle, instill that culture of empowering students to know what their strengths are, what their passions are, and what their purpose is. And I think it's a terrific framework and one I'm very proud of. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Gerard. There's certainly a range of opportunities. I think that's one of the things too about the school is that the students have a really strong sense of their place in the community, and they're conscious of giving back. So the students are really strong in making a difference to others. I think one of the great differences in the St. Michael's community is students have a great sense of social justice and awareness, which is terrific. So they're always very keen to make a difference and follow causes that are close to their hearts, which is really fantastic as young people. A couple of questions. Emma, I might come to you. There's a couple of questions just about the languages, in terms of, one of them was about Italian. Is there a possibility of advanced Italian students to study Italian rather than just beginners from year 7? So if a student comes and joins us at the school and they have a high level of proficiency in the language, how do we sort of extend that rather than run them through, I guess, a beginner's type program?
Thanks, Ben. So our 4 languages, French, Italian, Japanese and Chinese, are all treated a little bit differently, and that's largely to do with which of those languages are done in our junior school. So because Japanese and French can be taken in our junior years here at St. Michael's, we do start year 7 with either beginning or continuing Japanese and French. Similarly with Chinese, we offer that to year 7 students who have a background in that language already. Chinese is a relatively new language for St. Michael's, and next year will be the first year where we actually have a year 10 Chinese class, and then the year after that, obviously, they will progress to BCE. So Italian is actually this the one language that students come in and don't necessarily select beginning or continuing. They go into I suppose a mainstream Italian class, but within that class and within all the classes, obviously there is an opportunity to extend students who might already have some background in that language. Now, if they are, say, a native speaker of a language like French or Italian, then I would really recommend a conversation with our head of languages to see how we can best continue on their learning. Sometimes we have students who are background speakers in a particular language, like Italian, and they are progressing that outside of school. So they actually choose a different language in year 7. They might pick up French instead. But that, I think, is probably, it would be great for you to have a conversation with the head of languages about specific language progress for your child if they are at quite a proficient level in year 7.
Terrific, thanks, Emma. That's really comprehensive, and I think I might just to cover off on another one. And between you and I, there's another question regarding, which sort of feeds a little bit to the one that you've just answered in a way. A question about, we're having trouble choosing a language for year 7 next year. Our son already does Japanese at primary school, so so that makes a logical progression. But also interested in Chinese as being an option as well. How would we go to provide some advice and helping a family make a decision around that? You've alluded to a conversation with the head of languages. That's probably the way that we'd progress in terms of sitting down with a family and having a look at past experience and directions that a student might want to go. Would that be right? In a conversation with head of languages.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And look, languages are compulsory at St. Michael's to the end of year 9. And the one that you pick in year 7 is the one that you continue with for 3 years. So it's a big commitment in that regard that we ask of our Year 6s to choose a language in Year 6 for Year 7. So just to reiterate, Chinese can only be chosen if you already have a background in speaking Chinese or you've been learning it really from, you know, prep or the early years of junior school. And other than that, the only advice I would say is to choose something, a language that you think you might enjoy. We do a unit in Year 7 that is linked with languages where they actually get to go to our food technology kitchen and they actually study the language whilst they are learning to cook cuisine from that country. So that sometimes actually helps Year 7 pick because they think they can sometimes choose with their stomach. And that's okay. I think it's really good, whatever gets them engaged and gets them hooked into the study of that language early in Year 7 can really help then their education in that language until the end of Year 9 at least. And certainly many of our students go on to VCE with their language.
Terrific, thanks Emma. Kate, I might come to you on this one if that's okay. Just the question regarding, I guess, getting students back into attending and those sort of things. No doubt online learning has been a challenge for many students and families as well, and continues to be. There's a question about how do we support students who might be having trouble with attendance and so forth after online learning. It's something that does happen from time to time, particularly in the frame for you and I across Year 7 to 12. Kate, would you be able to speak to that just for a minute about the types of supports I guess we put in place to help bring students back to school after online learning?
Sure. I think one of the focuses we had last year during extended lockdown, probably a phrase that still triggers some of us when we have to say it, was the Navigator program that got put in place. So the real focus from the school was to know that students were learning remotely, but they didn't feel remote. So each student in the school was actually allocated a staff member who made connections with them once a week. It was a check-in. It's morphed these days more into a bit of an academic mentor. We've kept the program going since coming back on site, and I think that's actually been incredibly helpful given we have had a couple of small lockdowns since then. The program was still able to continue online so that students felt connected with a staff member. I think another protective factor that we've got in place is the Student Hub, which runs through SCOL, which is our LMS, where students across houses have been running competitions. Some of them are using their Instagram pages for Insta stories each day, where someone from the house actually takes over the Instagram story and shows people what they're doing. The house period online each day has been used as a check-in. So those are protective factors that are there to design for when students do come back on campus, that they're coming back with that sense of belonging and not fear. We've already got plans in place for how we'll make connections when the students are back on site, hopefully next week. But of course, there are some students, like you said, Ben, that still do struggle. I think one of the strengths of what we have here is we look at the data. So we're very careful about looking at patterns of behaviour which might look like a student is starting to pull back a bit or starting to skip certain classes. Those sorts of patterns we look at very closely and look for those early interventions, and that might be some discussions with the family and the tutor or the head of house, or having the student perhaps even self-refer to the school psychology service as well. So we do have ways to support those students, but also a lot of protective factors in general that usually hopefully means we're not getting too many at that end when we are coming back on site. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Kate. Terrific. Covering a range of topics this morning, and I hope you're finding the information useful and informative as we work through those. Ben Moody, I might come to you, if that's okay. A question about, I guess, the time commitment for students involved in performing arts. So if students were involved in a major production, whether it be the 7 to 9 or 10 to 12 area, if they're involved in a drama production or a musical, those sorts of things, what sort of time commitment are students looking at for a production like that?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Look, what we try and do is keep it as condensed as we possibly can. So generally speaking, for a significant project like one of our musicals at 7 to 9 or 10 to 12, or the dance project, which involves students in 7 to 12, or one of our plays, we tend to try and rehearse it during one term, And then we include what we call a rehearsal intensive, which will be 5 days of rehearsal, kind of like a rehearsal camp during one of the weeks of the holidays. The advantage of that is that we can try and condense everything so it doesn't drag out too long for students during the year. But the commitment is significant in the sense that for a senior production, we'll rehearse 2 afternoons a week, usually Tuesday and Thursday, and then for significant parts of a Saturday as well. For a 7 to 9, it will be less of a Saturday, probably half of a Saturday and 1 afternoon during the week. So we do require a reasonable commitment. We tend to find, though, that students are quite happy to commit for that period of time, given the reward that comes from that effort. And we're obviously quite proud of the standard of the productions that we put on, and we think that it's a really valuable learning experience for them. So we are mindful of the time that it does take, and we certainly do our best to make sure that the time that they spend with us is high impact and certainly not wasted. I hope that answers that question, Ben.
Ben, thanks so much. Certainly, I guess that's one of the things is about developing our students is that ability to manage their commitments and time. And certainly, we encourage them to not only focus on their academics at St Michael's, but I guess that whole person education, whether they be contributing to a group in terms of community action or their house, or whether they're participating in co-curricula such as performing arts and sport. It's probably a nice segue, Tyren, to come to you. In terms of the training program that we offer to support students in their sport, would you be able to just to sort of differentiate a little bit between the fixtures and the training commitments and what sort of time students are required to put into that sort of program in sport?
Yep, thanks, Ben. So the compulsory part, as I said before, is on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So for year 7, 8s, they would have compulsory sport on a Tuesday afternoon. So if they have a training session, they'll just train until 3:30. And they'll depart during lunchtime, and that gives them access to catch the school bus run home. If they've got a home or away match, an away match, they'll probably get back to school at about 5 o'clock, and for a home match around 4:30. So with St Michael's, we pretty much only have the one home venue, being our indoor basketball court. So we play basketball, volleyball or netball in there, and then majority of our other sports are off-site, so down at around Albert Park Lake. We're lucky enough, we've got a great relationship with them, with Parks Vic, and we've got 2 artificial soccer pitches, a football oval, we've got our cricket oval down there, and then we also use Albert Park Indoor Sports and MSAC. So very lucky to have that nearby. The separation then, the morning, so 2021 saw the school change their timetable to allow us to do our co-curricular trainings of a morning. That's not only sport, but also performing arts. And across that, we train a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday morning, where our students can sign up to a netball academy on a Thursday, where the students will arrive here on campus at about 7:15, and then they'll train to about 8:30. And then it gives them then 20 minutes to have their breakfast, get changed and get ready for period 1. So we have some students that train 3 or 4 mornings a week, which is fantastic, and we love to see that. And one of the big pluses about moving to a morning training session is allowing our students to still be engaged in their community sport or community commitments. And we're very, very supportive of that as a school. So there's nothing I love to see more than a student playing football at their local club or netball, and also playing for the school. So real positive outcome this year with the changes to our timetable. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Tyren. Terrific. A question, Gerard, I might come to you if that's okay. What support is there for students on the autism spectrum? For example, networks or the ICANN network or other aspects of things? I know that you've had quite a lot to do with the learning services team over a period of time. Could you talk to that a little bit, please?
Sure, Ben. Well, we have a range of paraprofessionals at St Michael's, independent of the teaching staff. I lead a wellbeing committee, and those staff are also representative on it. So according to the nationally consistent collection of data for students with disability, there are 4 major categories, and we have cognitive, sensory, social emotional, and also we have the physical. And those are represented at St Michael's within the services that we have: the Health Service Centre, the Learning Services, and also the Psychology team. Now, our Wellbeing Committee meets fortnightly to look at the broad range of needs of our students, So autism spectrum, for example, is one component of that. In our considerations, we look at the programs that we have in place. We look at staff and student awareness. We look at resources. We look at the way that we integrate learning support within particular families. Now, according to the NCCD classifications, there's regular differentiation within the classroom through to quite intensive one-to-one interventions. Each child is seen as an individual case, and though they may, in one sense, have a generic need or diagnosis or condition, they all are seen as individuals with their own individual needs and are provided to according to needs. So there's particular meetings that occur regularly where we look at the program support for each individual with their teachers and with their families, and we articulate what the strategies are. And I mentioned the use of technology previously. We have a wonderful technology platform that ensures that those needs are documented, monitored, and communicated. And that forms the basis of our program for delivering to each child according to their needs. Now, all that aside, I talked about the wonderful culture at St. Michael's. Akin to that, we have programs that we've joined that ensure we have the very best with regards to professional learning for our staff and for our parent community when we have Ask an Expert evenings hosted by members of the wellbeing team, where we bring external experts to present to the broader community. And likewise, on our Neurodiversity Week, the students and staff present to the whole campus through various ways, including information tables at lunchtimes on all of these issues. So I feel like, in one sense, this is an additional strength of the school. Kate alluded to the strength of pastoral care, and I think the fact that our school is a diverse, inclusive school and values each individual, that's reflected also in our policy with regards to students' needs. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Gerard. Terrific. Emma, I might just come to you. A couple of other questions here that I think you'll be able to cover off on. A question about other classes in Year 7 to 12 graded by ability.
Thanks, Ben. Sure. So the short answer to that is no, they are not. But there is some of what some might call streaming in maths. And that's really because by Year 9, students probably need to be thinking about which maths pathway they want to take in Year 10, 11 and 12. And in VCE, as we know, there are different streams of maths. There's the general and further stream, and then there's the maths methods and specialist streams that are quite different. So, however, we don't grade our core classes or our electives at the school. Each subject and each suite of assessments has the ability to be adjusted if necessary to suit the student's needs. So whether that student needs to be extended or whether they need some additional support with a particular learning task or activity, that can usually all happen in class by the teacher, by the faculty, and we also have a great learning services team who also assist with that. So they can work with the teachers to change some of the curriculum or the excuse me, or the assessment tasks, and sometimes they might even be in the class to support students who need that help. We do have a couple of subjects, such as in Year 9 and Year 10, we have an extension science subject for students who are showing a particular aptitude for science in Year 8, and they're invited to participate in an extension science course in Year 9 that also contains some Year 10 students, and that allows them some advanced entry into some of the VCE science subjects. So as I said, the short answer is no, they're not, students are not grouped by ability. but there are a couple of exceptions to that rule in terms of maths and science as you progress through the school. Thanks, Ben.
Okay, man, thanks so much. And it's terrific that you're also able to cover off on a couple of things in terms of extension and support for students, whether they require some extra support with their learning in particular areas or are looking to be extended in that area as well. Emma, while I've got you there, a question about how does the school go about recruiting quality educators and also ongoing teacher education. Just before you answer, I did want to mention too that if we don't quite get to all the questions today, we're getting close to the end. We will do all we can to get back to you. As I said, if you've left your name as part of your question, then we'll certainly follow up in the next couple of days to get back to you. Emma, recruiting quality educators and ongoing teacher education. Perhaps you might speak to that for a moment.
Sure, thanks, Ben. So in terms of ongoing teacher education, we have been developing over the last couple of years the St Michael's, the renewed St Michael's Teaching, Learning and Caring framework. And that really is the basis for all the professional learning that we would want our staff to be able to do. So we have a few different programs of ongoing teacher education, and they're all really aligned to that teaching and learning and caring framework. Something I'm sure you've already spoken about today is the, the culture of school in terms of its pastoral care and the focus on building positive relationships between students and staff. And so, for example, one of the whole school focal points earlier this year for our ongoing education was around building those positive relationships and restorative practices in the classroom. So we do that by getting in experts in their field to come and work with us as a school, and we also use our own expert knowledge in school as well, depending on what the particular learning is. On top of that, staff are encouraged to obviously undertake professional learning that is aligned to their own faculty's goals and visions or needs. And we certainly have a lot of staff who are undertaking their master's degrees or who have done that, and the school provides support for staff and encouragement to continue their own education as lifelong learners, because we think that both students are the lifelong learners, but also our teachers are as well. Ben, what was the first part of that question?
I guess the recruitment process in terms of a couple of things. No, you've done well. You're doing very well.
Okay, thank you. So, look, we have quite a rigorous recruitment process, and it culminates in candidates actually coming in and teaching a class at the school for us to observe. So that is that's probably the best part of the recruitment process, because being in the classroom, seeing how a teacher engages with the students and seeing how students respond to a teacher is very telling. So that's probably the best tool that we have in terms of teacher recruitment. There are, we obviously have relationships with a number of different universities. I'm about to go off and do some mock interviews with Monash University's education graduates, which is actually how I got my very first job as a teacher. So I felt I should go and give back and interview some of the final year teachers and give them an experience of a mock interview. So keeping those relationships with the universities as well, working with graduates, and being able to nurture them at the school as well. So we like to recruit teachers with a range of experience, either very experienced teachers, but we also have a strong belief in and commitment to working with graduates to build their skills and as well. Thanks, Ben. I know we've got to wrap up.
Terrific, Emma. Thanks. No, it's very comprehensive. Look, as I said, as Emma mentioned, we do only have a couple of minutes to go, so we'll try and cover off on a couple of questions as we go through. There's a question about what opportunities to study a language outside the four offered, for example, Spanish. I can certainly speak to that for a moment, that it's not, it's not completely uncommon that students at St Michael's do study one of the languages that we don't offer as part of our formal classroom curriculum program. Students that may have parents that are native speakers of Spanish or Greek or something similar. Students that might attend those classes, for example, on a weekend or Friday evening, as many of the language classes are run. And then once students get to VCE years, they may continue with those languages. They may not be offered as part of our curriculum here at school, but a number of VCE students will study those through the Victorian School of Languages. St Michael's will offer support. We offer them support here in terms of meeting space and ability to connect with their language tutor on a regular basis. And then they would actually sit that exam once they get to year 12 for VCE, or year 11 if they're studying a little bit earlier. They would sit that exam on site as part of the end of year exam. So it's not uncommon that happens. Students that might have a program set up, I guess, by you as parents, that they're studying those on the weekend, that they can continue those, I guess, in parallel with what they're doing here at school. Another of the advantages that Tyren spoke about before, with having a weekly sport program that does free up the weekends for some of those extra activities that are on. Other question there's one speaking to the school's ATAR and VCE results. I'm certainly happy to do that for a moment. Our VCE results are something we're very proud of, and it's as much as there's information on the school website, and certainly you can look that up. I guess in a general sort of sense, look, around 45 to 50% of students at St Michael's would typically achieve an ATAR of over 80, and around a quarter of our students would achieve an ATAR over 90. And certainly there's a proportion, 15 or so percent would achieve over 95. So that real high achiever, as we know. But I think the difference at St Michael's is that we do allow opportunities for everybody. So we have some students for whom achieving an ATAR of 98 or 99 is their stretch goal, and something that they really seek to do, and that's their measure of success at year 12, which is fantastic. For students wanting to do that, they will be supported by teachers, encouraged by their friends, and there's certainly, I guess, an appreciation of excellence in terms of academic performance in that, and we encourage them to do so. At the same time, as part of a cohort in any given year, we would have students for whom simply getting through year 12 is success in itself, and we support all of those students as they go through as well. We realise that success is more than just a number, and behind every student there's certainly a story. So for some students, as I said, getting a high nominal ATAR is their measure of success. But others, it might be more about achieving their personal best, whether that be a B or a C average or a D average. If it's their personal best, that's what we want to encourage them to do. The difference too, I guess, at St Michael's is that we encourage students to remain engaged and actively involved in the community throughout the year 12 year. We expect them to participate in a season of sport. We encourage them to be part of the musical or debating or take on a leadership role, because it's those stories that they gain from being involved in other activities about school that'll help them into that next step into life beyond school. There's no question that an ATAR and academic results will certainly open doors and opportunities for them, and we do encourage that. But we also want them to have, as I said, a range of other stories and experiences to have with them as they move through. A last couple of questions there. Gerard, I might just come to you briefly, if that's okay. A question about what the school's done to support teaching staff with their wellbeing during the last 18 months or so with COVID. I know you've had a role in organising a couple of those, I guess, social and collegiality type activities. Could you speak to that for a moment about supporting staff wellbeing through the last 12 to 18 months?
Sure, Ben. I think that's a really important aspect, because the carers have to take care of themselves, and the school takes that responsibility very seriously. I've talked about the strong, pardon me, I think there's someone working out the back there. The school takes very seriously that responsibility, and it's an ongoing part of the work of the Wellbeing Committee. I suppose when you consider the dimensions of support that we have at school, we have the psychology team, and also we have the people and strategy supports. We have a quality staff association, and we also have our chaplaincy. But I think at the core of it is the culture and the camaraderie that has sustained the staff at St Michael's. The optimism that we have, the belief in our school community, and the investment of the staff in the work that they do. I think if it was just a transactional role, then it would weigh heavily the impact of COVID on their practice. But the fact that the staff here are a wonderful cultural fit and have that strong vocational element ensures that they've invested wonderfully into the school community, and likewise in each other. part of our celebration of that is a great communication that we facilitate amongst the staff, and one cheeky event that occurs regularly is the Snaps Cup, where the staff publicly acknowledge each other for quite complex things and quite simple things that they've each contributed. And I think that awareness of each other's needs has really carried us through. The Staff Association provides regular connection for the staff, and we've even managed to provide a virtual staff room and virtual catch-ups as well. But from the crossing man through to the members of the board, we're all in this together and we're all supporting each other, and that's affirms our community, I think, very much. Thanks, Ben.
Very good, Gerard. Thank you, and certainly well said. Ladies and gentlemen, it's coming to the time to conclude this morning. We have limited places remaining for 2022 and are actively filling places at St Michael's for 2023. So if you are interested in a place for 2022 or 2023 or beyond and haven't already made an application, please contact our enrolments team on 038530 3310. That's 038530 3310 before applying to discuss the available positions that we have. If you're interested in any other years of entry, I'd encourage you to make an application by clicking the apply button on our webpage. Thank you this morning to Gerard, to Kate, to Emma, to Ben and to Tyren for their time. We do really hope that time with you this morning has been helpful in giving you a bit of a flavour of life at St Michael's. I think one of the great strengths of the community that I think a few of us have spoken to is that the breadth of student interest and the breadth of passions that the students have. I think one of the things we often talk about, many of us in our admissions interviews, is that one thing that St Michael's offers is that diversity and the breadth of opportunities to be involved in things, and the students' acceptance of that range of things. For some students, their purpose when they get up in the morning is to play sport and swim or kick a football or play tennis. For others, it's to sing or to play the trumpet. For some, it might be debating or photography or fine arts. For some, it might be maths or science. But I think one of the great things the school community offers is the ability to connect with like minds and the willingness to embrace students with varied interests. Difficult to describe to you a typical St Michael's student, because they do have such a wide range of interests, which is really fantastic and makes every day new and different as a staff member as well. Thanks so much for attending our open morning this morning. We hope it's been helpful for you. We look forward to hearing from you if you have more questions. And all being well, we hope that we might see all of you, or many of you at least, at our in-person open days once the community restrictions allow us, hopefully in a couple of weeks' time. We'll now conclude this event. Thank you so much for joining us. Please take care of yourselves and those close to you, and enjoy the weekend ahead. Thanks, everybody. Good morning.